immediate, I guess, natural response would be yes. I do think it is important for both boys and girls, all genders in fact, to see themselves represented in the media in a positive light. I think what comes to mind first of all would be if you can't see it, you can't be it. And you do hear about people's experiences where they have talked about how they never saw themselves represented in the media. For example, perhaps aspects of their identity, such as they didn't see people from their ethnicity, for example, or from people who have a similar gender identity or sexual orientation. Perhaps they didn't see themselves represented in the media, perhaps in films or in the music industry. So yes, I definitely think it's important because it allows people to see that there are people who are like me in this way. For example, their social class, their gender identity, their sexual orientation, and so on. There are people who are similar to me in that way, and I can see that they're visible to me across the media. So not just in films and music, but I guess also in television, also on social media, perhaps important as well. So yes, I would say it's important, and I would, I guess, emphasise if you can't see it, you can't be it. It's very difficult to aspire to something if you don't even realise people like you can achieve that position.
So the Bechdel test is essentially a test of 3 rules. So the first one is, does the film or TV feature more than one female-led character? The second rule is, do these women have a conversation with each other? Like 1 or 2 or more women have a conversation with each other? And then the final rule is this conversation not about men? I feel that this is very important for the media industry, as a lot of films that have been made previously, women are almost just focused on men and their goal is like a man or something to do with that. So I think it's very important that it's now a thing in the industry.
Yes, I feel like media representation is very important because there will be young people that look up to the celebrities in the media and things like that. And also it almost raises an awareness as well of certain conditions. It's a place where you can go and be educated on things like mental health, which people may not know about, like certain things like depression, things like that. So they look there. But I also feel like it could be bad in some aspects where people are sort of looking up to celebrities and things that have like idealistic images that were probably used in like Photoshop and things like that before they were put into things like Instagram.
Represented as most films these days, such as Marvel for example, have a very male-dominated lead because they think men are more strong, more powerful. But in saying that, there's also the example of Captain Marvel, which is a predominantly female lead, which has a very strong, I guess, in my opinion at least, gender base, where it shows a woman being strong and powerful, which can do the same thing as men.
Like women are made to dress in more like formal clothing, more like dresses and things like that, when really there's people that don't want to dress that way. Women are sort of put in clothes that makes them more sexualised, whereas men always have the sort of suit kind of thing, that kind of stereotype. There's also a load of like stereotypes that go with the way that women wear different clothes and things like that, and also portrayed in things like Instagram, things like that. You always see like with the women's figures and things like that, curvy figures in dresses and things like that, whereas there's some women that have a different kind of physique that don't really fit that. So
I definitely think there's been an improvement from the 90s to the modern day, or any time to the modern day, as well, like I mentioned, back in the day, there'd be the female roles would be almost reliant on men, and a lot more traditional roles and stuff like that. But now we can see females who don't rely on men, who are independent of themselves, and actual characters that don't need men.
I think it's very important, and it's a great thing that directors have been changing the way women and men are differently represented in media, as say in the 80s, for example, in like horror films or in just films in general, women were more dressed provocatively and were more overly sexualized. So for a modern TV show, for an example, the show Killing Eve, I think this show is such a good example of women being represented as not needing a man or not being like male-led. As the main character Villanelle, she's on her own, she will just do what she pleases, and she's also trying to obtain Eve in a way, so I think it's very important that directors are changing this.